I hope all of you are having an amazing day so far. So this one right here, this was a custom order. So one of you guys won a custom tumbler made by me last month, and this one took me quite a while because I honestly didn't know what I wanted to make. She gave me lots of inspiration in her email to me, and so I kind of took that, and I know I took a little bit longer than usual to come up with the concept, but I just wanted to make sure that it was something I knew that she would like and that I would like too after I made it. So I hope you guys enjoy this and get inspired by it because Christmas is around the corner. So, so let's go ahead and wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. First things first, let's go ahead and start with our base. So she said she really loves the color pink, so I was like, okay, let's go with pink. So I pretty much just base coated my tumbler in just a maroon color, anything that kind of matches whatever color you're using. But I'm gonna go ahead and use Mod Podge as my adhesive, and I'm gonna do just one coat of glitter, one color glitter over the entire surface. And the color glitter I'm using today is called Adore. So I'm gonna go ahead and load up the bottom first, then up around the rim, and then come through and fill in the middle. And of course, I'll set that off to the side and let that fully dry before we add a coating of epoxy over top. She is nice and smooth. Since it was just one glitter, just a full coat of epoxy until it's somewhat smooth. You don't need it like a thick coat of epoxy, just somewhat smooth. You know, we don't want to add too many thick layers onto this. So my whole concept was I wanted it to look like you're looking into like a hole in a birch tree and there's like a scene happening on the inside. So I didn't want to do like a typical circle because I thought about a circle, but I didn't want to do that. So I chose doing a diamond. So these shapes are just basically available on any type of cutting. So Cricut, you just go in there, you choose a diamond shape or whatever shape you want to use and get it to the size that you want it and get it cut out on a piece of vinyl. To make sure it's straight, I am just going to use a rubber band and place it down the center of my tumbler so that way I know the top of the diamond and the bottom of the diamond are center with each other. So I'll just take an acrylic marker and I'll mark the top and I'll mark the bottom so that way, again, I know where my points need to go. Now this piece of vinyl we are going to be using as a mask because we're going to come through and do our birch tree look over top. So all I do, because we're working on a curvy surface, if you happen to be working on a curvy surface, I run my finger down the center of my decal and then I'm going to stretch and pull my corners over and then just burnish the best that I can. There will be some crinkles here and there. You just kind of work with them and try to get those as smooth as possible. But again, this is just a template, so that way we know the shape is there once it's all said and done. But we definitely don't want it too wonky. So just doing these movements will help out tremendously in making sure that it's the diamond shape that you want in the end. All right, our diamond template is down, and now we're just gonna come through. I'm gonna wipe off my acrylic markers there, and we're gonna take it outside and spray paint. I thought long and hard on how I wanted my birch tree to look. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray paint it black first, and then you wanna let that dry before you spray paint it the next color. But I was like, I wanted to do a crackle, but I was like, because if I go to remove, the way that I do my crackle, it's different, and it's hard to use stencils when you go to do the crackle. It'll want to pull the glue that you use to do the crackle completely up. So I was like, no, we're not going to do that. So I decided we are going to distress the tumbler to give it that birch tree look. All right, let that sit for a few minutes, and then we're going to come through and spray paint white over top. And of course, you're going to set that off to the side and let that dry. I let it dry probably for about an hour or two, and then we'll come through and get this distressing done. So even after a couple hours, sometimes the paint will still be a little tacky. As long as you're still able to handle it, I still move on to my next step here because I do end up letting these sit overnight before I add epoxy. So even if it's a little tacky and you move on to distressing it, it's all good. As long as it's not weird to handle and you're not leaving fingerprints on it, you definitely don't want that. But even after an hour, it was just slightly tacky and I'm still working with it. So as you guys seen, I'm going to use two different kind of components to distress our tumbler here. The first one I'm going to use is 100% acetone, which removes lots of layers of the paint, making it quick work of that distressing look that we want, while the rubbing alcohol only removes a little tiny bit at a time, which I tend to use the rubbing alcohol more or less to kind of clean up the white areas if I need to, or to clean up the glitter areas after it's all said and done. So we are going to work with our 100% acetone first, and then move on to our rubbing alcohol. So I just wanted it to look like bark wrapped around, or I don't know. That's the kind of look I was going for. So I just wanted it to look like we kind of peeled the bark off the tree and laid it across our tumbler. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove the layer of paint from up around the rim. I'm also going to remove a layer of it from around the bottom as well. So I already knew in my mind that as I got going that the black underneath is going to smudge across the white, which is exactly what I'm looking for because it's going to provide us with that birch tree look that we know so much. So as I'm going, you're going to notice that I only go in one direction. So every swipe that I do, it's going to be horizontal across the center of the tumbler versus up and down motions because I want it to have the same striation throughout. Again, just providing us with that birch tree look that we want. So as you see here, I'm going to go ahead and start with my handle first. The reason why I'm starting with my handle first, I don't know. I just always do. Anyways, you can start with whatever you want. But as you can see, I am just kind of rubbing away just certain portions, but I'm also just leaving the black lines as I rub as well because I like that look too. Because again, it's going for that look that we want. So again, I'm just going to come through and I'm going to get started on doing the lines throughout. So I didn't want to remove too much. So I'm pretty much just going to go row by row. I'm going to do like a gap of like about an inch or so, inch or two in between each one that I do. And I'm just going to get it rubbed away to the point where it kind of exposes a bit of the glitter. And then what I will do is I'm going to come back through with my rubbing alcohol and then kind of clean it up from there. But for right now, we're just kind of going for that. We're just kind of getting our areas situated. We're figuring out exactly where we want our spots to be. So again, you don't have to fully fill it in just yet. We will come back through and just continue to kind of go over all these little spots until we get that look that we want. So the more pressure that you apply with your rag full of the acetone, the more of that paint it will remove away. So I pretty much do that hard pressure until I start to see the glitter underneath. And then I just kind of ease up a little bit, just exposing a bit of the black ring around the outside. So that way, again, it just kind of looks a little bit more torn through. And again, just trying to keep in mind to keep it horizontal versus vertical. All right, so I kept that spacing of about an inch or two in between and I just did it all the way around and this is what I have so far. So still using my acetone, I'm gonna come through one more time and go over every single spot. Again, either making it bigger or cleaning up around the edges if I want to, or smearing a little bit more of that black here and there just to give me more of that kind of striation look. After I have that cleaned up or have it look in the way that I want it to, I'm going to go ahead and come through with my rubbing alcohol. And this is the point in time where, I accidentally put a little too much on my cup. And then I'm going to come through and just really clean it up. So I'm going to go through the glitter areas, making sure there's no haze over top. And I will kind of clean up the white areas as well, I don't want all the black on there, just some of it. So I will kind of clean up the white area as well. And this will do it. So you just want to be careful that you don't accidentally smudge your glitter again. So I let it dry and then I'll check it one more time to make sure that there's no haze over top of the glittered area. And then we will go from there. All right, now's the fun part. We're going to go ahead and remove our decal. And once we have that removed, we're going to go ahead and get another coating of epoxy applied over top because what I want to do next, I just want to make sure that I don't mess up that paint job that we just did with the birch tree look. So I wanted to add a little bit, Mary said she wanted it as glittery as possible. So into my epoxy, I added a little tiny pinch of sugar and a little bit of alfresco. And then I put that over top. And after that cures, we'll be ready to move on to the next step. We're back and we're ready to get our insert all filled in with all kinds of cool holiday stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tape off my diamond area because I'm going to come through with some spray paint. So I'm going to get that taped up. And after I have it taped up, I'm going to bring it outside. Hold on, let me find the center of my tape. There we go, right there. Okay, that's a good spot. Remembering where the snow needs to be, I almost sprayed it in the wrong area. I need it right there because my tumbler's flipped upside down. So just a little bit of this white because we're going for a snowy look. And then I will come through and add some speckles to look like snow across the top as well, where I just hold my nozzle down just a little bit and spray it. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry and then we'll take it back inside. The hardest part was figuring out what decals I wanted to use, because I really wasn't too sure in the direction I was going to go, but I had a bunch of these UVDTFs that I bought off of Amazon, and I knew I wanted to use something from this. So it took me a little bit to figure it out because I have a curvy surface that I'm dealing with. And if I were to use one of those big houses and try to put it on that curve, the UVDTF would crack and it wouldn't form to the shape that I'm trying to get it onto. So I needed to make sure that I picked something that I could place onto this curvy surface and it would still form pretty good. So after I had a basic concept of which UVDTFs I was thinking I was going to use, I decided I wanted to really differentiate, there we go, that was a big word to say, between the insert of where my decals are going to go and the wood look. So I'm going to come through and I'm going to use, you can use whatever color you want, but I'm going to use, I think it was Mermaid that I used, and I'm just going to color the sky in this color because I want it to kind of look like a winter's evening. You know, like there's a blizzard going on and the sky is just starting to get a little bit dark, but you can kind of still see what's happening out there. That's kind of the look I was going for. So I'm just going to take this blue and I am just going to give that, and I'm not going to come down all the way. I think I only came down about halfway because I still want some of that pink to shine through as well, along with the blue. So I just kind of want it to have that faded look to it. So there wasn't such a harsh line. I'm just going to take a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and I take my rubbing alcohol and then I'm just going to dab that around right in the center and get that fade look going so it's not such a harsh line. And right after I got my sky painted, I'm going to move right into going ahead and adding my UVDTF decals. So I found this house. I really liked it. It's not too big, but it wasn't too small. It has that nice pronounced look that I was going for. But again, I'm trying to keep in mind of that curve that I have working against me right in the center there. So I'm actually going to put this house above where the curve starts. And I didn't have an issue with it. I got all the trees down flat, and as you see, it's half off of where it's at too, because I'm going to come through. That's the look I was going for. I'm going to come through, I'm going to cut it, and it's going to be like half in the screen, or you could have it fully in, but this is what I wanted to do. I just wanted to let you guys know you could do that. It's okay to do that. But I'm going to have a little bit of a mark there, as you can see, but it's all good because I'm going to come through and add kind of a snowy look over top of it. So as long as you can work around any areas that you might have issues with, it's really not a big deal if you can't get it to fully form to your surface, because these are very difficult to form around curves. Now I'm just going to go ahead and come through with my razor knife, and I'm just going to follow that line of where my tape is at and cut it right through. And then I'm going to come through and peel everything back. And I am not too concerned if that UVDTF does not come off when I peel the clear transfer tape off of it, because it will peel back when we go to peel the tape back. And as you see here, I'm just going to adjust that area that did crinkle a little bit. I'm going to cut it and make sure it's burnished smooth. And again, you won't even be able to see it once we apply the rest of the look that we're doing here. And here I'm just making sure that that is going to peel away properly when I go to peel back. So I just did that just to verify before I moved on. Then I wanted to come through and add a tree. So I'm going to go ahead and place a tree down and do the same thing where I trim off, or I cut with my razor knife right where the tape line is at, just so that way I could peel back the rest of it that I don't want on my cup. Now we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of snow. So I'm going to use my Aliens glitter snow for the purpose of snowing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take a brush and just load up my Aliens glitter snow wherever you want it. I did some on the roof. I did some around the snow look that's already there on the bottom of this house. I also did it up around the tree and down into the painted area where I had spray painted it white. So I knew I wanted to add glitter to it. So you want to make sure that you load this up pretty good, or you come through right after you do each area and glitter it as you go, which is what I'm about to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay down my paper, and then I'm gonna lay down whatever glitter choice you want. So what am I using? I can't remember what I used. I used crushed pearl, but obviously any white will do that you have on hand. Then after I get that done, I'm gonna go ahead and remove all of my tape. And after I removed my tape, I realized that some of that blue did seep underneath my tape. Not a big deal. I'm going to go ahead and take my rubbing alcohol, and I'm going to start buffing just that blue away right off the outsides here. And because my epoxy is within 2 days of curing, it really wasn't coming up with the rubbing alcohol. If it was cured longer, it would come right up. So I did have to come through and sand it just a little bit. It's the epoxy is still kind of porous when it's so freshly laid down, making it get stained pretty easily. So obviously, the longer it's cured, the less porous it becomes, and more, it'll just wipe away, like I said. All right, so after I have that all cleaned up, I'm going to go ahead and seal it down, or I'm going to use a liquid sealer or a spray sealer to seal everything, and we're going to get another coating of epoxy over top of this. Now to finish it up, I'm going to go ahead and add some pinstriping right around the outside of my diamond. I'm just using this nail tape. I thought it would go pretty well with what I have going on here. To give our points nice sharp edges where it meets up here, as you can see, I'm just going to take my razor knife and just go straight down the center of where it meets up together. And then once you pull those apart, it's going to give you a really nice sharp point. Now to make sure that this stays down, because sometimes these pinstripes want to come up, the nail stripe ones, they're a little touchy sometimes. I'm going to go ahead and seal it down. I'm just going to use my liquid sealer, let that dry really well before we move on to the next step. So I had a concept in my mind. I found this lantern and I really liked it, but I was like, how am I going to use this? So I wanted it to look like it's on the outside of where our hole is that's peeking into this other world that we have inside of our birch tree look. And I want to add that to the outside to look like it's like guiding you into the image. So what I was showing you there is, again, we're working with the curve of the surface, and I just trimmed up this decal as close as I possibly could to the image, so that way it helps out when I go to lay that down. So I'm going to figure out where I want it placed, and then I'm just going to eyeball it what I'm about to do next. I'm going to use that ribbon as my focal point where I want this next part to be. I want it to look like the lantern is glowing. So I'm going to take some yellow alcohol inks, and I'm just going to dabble that around where my decal is going to go, and that's going to give us that illusion of this lantern glowing. So the first yellow I used was a bit bright, so I came through with a darker yellow just to place right down into the center. Then I will come through with just rubbing alcohol and just blend everything out, giving us that bright lit look. Then I'll go ahead and place my lantern down and very carefully pull back your transfer tape. Sometimes if you go to pull your transfer tape too quickly, these decals aren't like fully rubbed down onto the surface and you might accidentally rip it, and we don't want that. So just pull it very slowly as you go. And of course, the rest of it is just me figuring out what else I would like to add to the outside to kind of draw your eye into our focal point area. So of course, I'm going to add some cardinals to the outside. I added her personalization, so I added her name to the back. I wanted to add some more cardinals to the front, so I added this grouping of cardinals. I also added a little bit over her name as well, so I added a cardinal, and then just this pretty grouping of greenery. And then once I figured out all the decals I wanted and all that, we're going to go ahead and move on to another coating of epoxy. Now, before you add your coating of epoxy over top of these, especially these UVDTF decals, make sure you seal it down because the epoxy will want to wick away off of your decals. So either spray seal or liquid seal. After I got my tumbler onto the turner, I went ahead and applied that epoxy, and with whatever was left in there, because we only need the tiniest amount for what we're about to do next, I'm going to take a little bit of white mica powder called Betty. I'm going to stir that into whatever is left over into the very bottom of this cup. Again, that all you need is the tiniest amount. I'm going to take my gloved finger and I'm going to dabble that right outside of that chimney. And again, I'm just going to kind of blend it, and then I'm going to hit it up with my torch to kind of disperse it just a little bit. I will let that cure, and then I will add 1 or 2 more coats of finishing epoxy, and she is good to go. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial today. Again, Mary, thank you so much for being so patient with me while I came up with this concept for you, and I hope you enjoy your tumbler. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next video.